Clearly, the crisis in governance has affected all businesses, and at the moment we don't have leadership in the country. My particular industry, which is shipping and maritime, we didn't have a subject minister for the last 2 weeks at a critical time where decisions, policies have to be made in order to continue operations. We work with several changes in the government level, in authorities. So there's a lot of uncertainty. So created by that uncertainty, boards have had to provide or create their own sort of governance or leadership within the organization. And communication has become critical. Communication in terms of to our foreign partners, we've had to daily communicate to them what's happening in the country because they're losing confidence, especially in the Port of Colombo. Is the operation daily we get a message asking, are the operations continuing? Can we send our ships? Will the cargo move? Will it be cleared? Can we get our boxes back? So these are the kind of basic questions that we face on a daily basis in my industry. And I think at a board level, we can't really sit at a macro level anymore. We have to get down to the micro level. We have to be hands-on. We need to know what's happening on the ground as leaders in companies and then clearly communicate to all the stakeholders on a daily basis, what is the situation in order to keep going. And this is not only to foreign parties that we deal with, but even to our staff. We need to communicate this is the company's policy, this is how we're going about it. So I think communication is critical at this point. Apart from that, I think boards have also got to make quick decisions. We can't wait for the next month's board meeting to make a decision. We have to have a Zoom call today, have a discussion, have the facts on hand, and make those decisions in order to, avert crisis situations. I think at board level, the leaders need to be very technically savvy right now, so board composition is also very important. You can't have, 5 or 6 independent directors on your board right now. You need to have people who are subject specialists and who know what's happening at ground level. And I think we being a private company, we have that culture where boards are very hands-on and sort of in touch with what's happening on the field, especially in shipping and logistics, where you need to have your ear to the ground on a daily basis.
Traditionally, the board's structure formats are not very agile. So hence the board conversation is generally directed by the agenda. And I'd say today one of the key things will be to review the agenda. How much time are you spending on reviewing your financials, reviewing your risk, reviewing your compliance? And also, importantly, how much are you focusing on the future, on the disruptions, on what's happening in the marketplace? There are a lot of opportunities that you can seize now, particularly in a volatile market. While the risks, mitigating the short-term risks, if you can foresee some of the opportunities as an organization, this is a point where you can grow very fast. So I'd say, particularly at a time like this, the boards have to really relook at the time they spend on regular compliance and financial reviews, but more time to be spent open conversations about how they really plan to navigate, how they want to see the opportunities and how they really want to take the conversation about the CEOs and within the board about what kind of market opportunities come and how do you embrace it. So I'd say really spending time on reviewing and putting the proper agenda can be extremely productive. So that's point one. Point two can be really to understand how in terms of governance, I think the governance is extremely challenged, particularly in today's context. Organizations are going through multiple disruptions. One, I think the employees. There's a lot of employees resigning, particularly the good employees. Then there is a high chance of theft. So at these points, really working with the business, to really make sure that these conversations are taken up, and how to address them becomes very, very critical.
As a business community, we missed an opportunity in the last quarter of last year and the first quarter of this year, where I feel we didn't have a cohesive voice and we didn't speak out when we should have spoken out. And this is it's a result of years of thinking that the ideal business model is apolitical, and I think that maybe remains the case, but it had shifted from being apolitical to being apathetic to an extent. And I can see parallels between this and when the war ended, and again our business community hadn't made that mindset shift to peace, and it took us some time, and here again I see it as having taken some time and we missed an opportunity. So as we think about how to navigate the future in this crisis of governance, we need to learn the lessons from that. We need to think about a few things in my view. One, we have a voice and we have a platform as corporate citizens. How do we best use that to improve the communities that we live in without overstepping that mark and becoming a political entity? So that's this balance that we have to strike between speaking out for things that matter to us, free markets or open markets, rule of law, free trade, without obviously becoming political entities, which we don't want to be and we are not geared to be. Secondly, we must understand that this crisis of governance has a knock-on impact of being crises in multiple other crises. Again, for our stakeholders, which I touched on with your previous question. So ensuring that all our stakeholders are okay and that value chain that we operate within survives and is resilient to all these challenges that are going to be brought upon as a result of this. And finally, we need to focus on being operationally more nimble than before. COVID made us plan for just in case. That continues. There is a different crisis, but the reaction to a crisis is similar. So this time we are faced with also collapse of domestic consumption, extremely tight monetary conditions domestically, and a global recession. Being nimble and ensuring that your organization is geared to being nimble for that is also part of the discussion and what we focus on as boards.
Every company is expected to function in fair and ethical manner. So under the stewardship given to board of directors, it is very important that we understand and actually we win the trust of all stakeholders and retain that. In order to do that, I guess we have to run the organization in ethical manner. So you need to have a proper governance structure to do that. When I say governance is built on 4 pillars, which is stewardship, accountability, integrity, and transparency. So if you have a proper governance frame and if directors discharge their duties according to that and the processes right throughout the organization, I think you will be able to build a good governance in the organization. I think when we talk about emerging channels, ESG-based integrated reporting is very popular and it has become a best practice. And in a framework like that, you voluntarily report, and when you have such a framework, you become compliant to the laws and regulations, and you go beyond and you are accountable for society. You get the social license, which is not a physical license, but through interacting with stakeholders. So it is very important to interact with stakeholders and understand their expectations in order to have good governance in an organization.
I mean, as far as governance is concerned, I think the volatility has resulted in the situation being constantly fluid. So the playbook a board would have used pre-pandemic or even pre-crisis has to completely change when navigating through these challenges. The routine meetings we would have, the routine committees that we would have had before, they would have changed in the priority list. So I think the level of frequency that we meet and discuss certain issues definitely needs to increase, because when you wake up and come to work the next day, you are in a completely different environment to when you went to sleep. So I think constant communication and management interaction with the board has completely changed, and I think it's an important thing. And also over-communication is also a very important aspect as well. I think over-communicating between the board and the management, between the management and the employees and the customers, really help take out the biasness or the level of interpretation that each person takes or makes is taken out, and I think that's a very important part to drive them from the board all the way to the bottom.